know this is old if they calling somebody a Negro. Here we go.
What?
January 15th, a Negro will run for governor of a southern state for the first time since Reconstruction.
Okay.
Pause. This word since, do you see that word right there?
Yeah.
This word since means it happened before. But let's start with Reconstruction. What is that?
What is that?
What is Reconstruction? Okay. It's a period of rebuilding that kind of is there in the name. It refers to the period from 1865 to 1877 following the Civil War. Wait a second. When did the Civil War end? When did it end? 1865. Okay, so you telling me that as soon as these men finished fighting the war, they elected black Americans? Former slaves? So you're telling me that as soon as these men finished in 1865, they upped and elected people that was on plantations, dirty, illiterate, stinking, to be their leaders in government? Is that what you're trying to tell us?
Wait.
Well, if the only black people in America were slaves,
right,
that came off of boats a generation or two before, then who in the world are these people? Wait a second. If the work of good old honest Abe to restore the Union was to give those poor, degenerate, low-life black folk rights so they just wouldn't be in slavery anymore, how the heck do you just up and elect them? And where did these people, what plantation were they on? Wait a second. The first colored senator and representative. What's going on?
1865.
Once again, the U.S. Reconstruction period started right at 1865.
Wow.
As soon as the Civil War was over, and right here, front page of Google, you see what I typed?
Right.
These
yeah.
guys.
Right.
These guys, they didn't come off a plantation. History.com has them right here. As soon as they talk about Reconstruction, right here, front and center. These were maybe just the special ones, right? The chosen ones. But then who in the world are these guys? Wait, this is all 1800s. Why haven't you learned about the elected officials that ran this country? Some of the founding fathers. When in school did you learn that these individuals existed? Black elected officials, 1800s.
1800s.
It wasn't just a few of them.
Oh my God.
There's a lot of them all over the country.
My goodness.
All over this country? When have you learned about this?
What in the world?
I thought everybody here was slaves.
Right.
How do you just take somebody that was just on a plantation and elect them to run your government, tax you, make laws on your behalf, and be your representative? Does that make sense to you?
No.
Black office holders in the South. In the 1800s? You never heard about any of these people. Wow. First of all, that person wasn't on nobody's plantation. You don't get freed in 1865 from hard labor, and then all of a sudden you're a governor, a senator, a representative, a delegate.
Right.
That's not how these things work.
No,
see, these people actually were prisoners of war.
What?
These people already were leaders, already had establishments, already were in America, already owned land, already was wealthy, already was in positions of leadership. This is the stuff they neglect to tell you,
bro,
in the month of February. Now let's think about it. In the history of ever, has there ever been a group of people who were subjugated, taken over, enslaved, and then made elected officials? I can think of one. How about this guy? Yeah, you know this guy. That's Nelson Mandela. And Nelson Mandela was the president of South Africa after he was released from jail from being incarcerated for 27 years. He was released, and 4 years later he became the president of his country. But what they don't tell you is that he was already a leader. He was already in a position of power. In fact, it was his leadership against the regime that came into his country and took over and subjugated the people, which landed him in jail in the first place. He was a prisoner of war. He wasn't just some jail guy that got out and they elected. Mandela wound up spending 27 years in prison, not for murder, not for stealing, not for rape, for leading the African National Congress, a political party. What was it guilty of? Opposing racist policies that kept the original inhabitants segregated and oppressed in inhumane conditions. That's what he was arrested for and spent nearly 30 years. So if we take the Nelson Mandela model of people who spent time in jail and then somehow magically became president of his country, then we would have to realize that Nelson's story is one of oppression and overcoming that in a land that was already his. So when we think about the proliferation of black elected officials in the 1800s, more than likely they didn't just pop off some slave ship or individually win their freedom somewhere. The truth of the matter is that most black people in America since time immemorial did not get here on slave ships. These people, their families, their descendants, their relatives, their friends, their countrymen, their neighborhoods, their towns, their wealth, their money, these people, they were already here.